Hello, my name is James Tagg, and I'm going to be giving a lesson on how to French polish a vintage sewing machine. This is a new home. I think it's called a Model A2, and as you can see, it's got a really pretty dog with a grandmother sitting at a sewing machine with a family, and it's got the word new home. Now basically the first thing you want to do for French polishing is you want to get hold of a number of items. Now this is called Zinza shellac, and it's a clear, so you want the word clear, or really you actually want the word blonde, and even super blonde is even better. Now this one's actually got wax in it, and it's not a good idea, and because I'm in New Zealand and I got this from Bunnings, it was accessible, but I don't want to wait for months for an import from Amazon, so I'm just using this Zinza Bullseye Shellac Clear. But to get super blonde, de-waxed flakes and mix up my own would be even better, and use methylated spirits. In America it's called denatured alcohol, and in England and in New Zealand it comes in this purple clear liquid. So that's methylated spirits. And then the other thing you want is some boiled linseed oil. Boiled in linseed oil, and not sorry, my mistake, you actually want raw linseed oil. Yes, raw linseed oil, and not boiled. The raw, I think, might look a little bit more orange. I used it in the furniture industry many years ago, working for a company called Trees, where they applied linseed oil to all their furniture. So I've been a wood carver and antique restorer in London and Los Angeles most of my life. But I'm retired from the industry now. Anyway, so what the first thing you can do is you can apply, which I've done, 3 coats with a brush, a nice, fine sable brush, or a synthetic, but as long as the bristles are quite fine, and you can just paint it on. And in between coats you use wire wool. This is wire wool, and you want the superfine. So you want the superfine. It goes by a numbering system of the number zeros, so you want 0, 0, 0, 0. You basically want 4 zeros, or the word superfine, and that's called wire wool. And then what you do is you cut it back between coats. So what I've got right here is a little bit of there's actually a little bit of wood dust in there, and you can use a pin or a needle, and then you can polish off any high spots like that. You can polish off any high spots like that with wire wool between coats. Now the other thing you want to do is you want to brush off any of the fine wire wool bits of dust. What I also do is, when I'm just wiping off the coats of linseed oil, sometimes the oil literally gets on a paper towel. So now, why do you do 2 or 3 coats plain with a brush first? Well, you're just building up some strong layers, and then you want to get into French polishing. And for French polishing, you want to make up a pad. Now, I stored this one in a peanut butter jar, and I put some methylated spirits in there just to keep it from going dry. And you can seal it off from the oxygen, and that's what a pad looks like. A pad is basically a bit of cotton with some other pad of cotton in there. And they used to make cotton pads for French polishing years ago, with other kind of wadding inside. So basically what you want to do is you want to you always want to thin down for the last final few coats. You want to thin down your shellac like this. And you want to put some of your boiled linseed oil in a little dish, so you've got access to it. Here's some of the smaller parts that I've done before. This one and this one. So I'll just show you very quickly the technique. Or it's a bit hard with this camera, but I'll give it a go and just see what happens. So you basically want to dip into the shellac until you've got a coating on the surface like that, and then you dip your finger in the raw linseed oil until it touches your finger, and you want to dab it on the center of your pad, and then you just want to polish in circles like this, and you keep polishing in circles. And the most important thing is that it shouldn't bite. So when you're polishing in circles like this, if it's too thick, if it's straight out of the can, if it's directly out of the can, when you apply it with a pad like this, it's going to stick. It's going to kind of bind when you're working like this. But if you thin it out, now what ratio do I thin that out to? I've thinned that out to 65 odd percent varnish and about 33 1/3% methylated spirits. You could go 1:1, which would be 50%, but I think that's a bit too severe. So anyway, I'll show you the technique again. You just dip it in the varnish like that, and then you get a little dab on your finger, and you dab it in the middle of the pad like that, and you get polishing away. Now when you're working on your decals, like this very pretty decal, you just want to go gently in polishing movements, and I haven't got any. It's not biting, it's sliding nicely, and that's why you need the raw linseed oil to make it slide smoothly afterwards, and just polish all the different areas. You're not really applying a lot of varnish. The varnish is still getting on there, but the raw linseed oil is enabling it to go on nice and smoothly. And you might want to do a number. Some people can even do up to about 40 coats, but I'm probably going to do about 5, 6, or 7 coats. That's how this was done in the furniture trade for many, many years. And this is basically French polishing. Sometimes you can use too much oil, but that's never a problem. Sometimes I see little blobs of oil getting on my work, and I can wipe them off with a paper towel afterwards. So that's basically how it's done. Apply a bit more shellac. And then when you get towards the final stages, you're using less shellac for build up and more boiled linseed oil. But you don't put too much linseed oil on, just basically enough to keep it moving around, and you're building up the layers. Now, why do I want to have lots of layers in this area here? Well, if you could really see it, it's very beautiful. There's an elderly woman sitting at a sewing machine with 2 little boys, I think. No, there's a little boy, and there's a woman, probably the nanny, looking after him, and there's a lovely little dog, and that dog is kind of the symbol that goes with these new home sewing machines. And I've got 2 versions of the New Home D, and the New Home D doesn't have this really exciting little tension on the top. You can see that little flicky thing there at the top up here. There's a really lovely tensioner on this thing that I just really like, that technology. And these gears are superb. I'm going to put some